As the steward of your purpose led brand, one of the most powerful shifts that you can make is actually learning how to strengthen your content and your messaging to speak specifically to the people that are called to your sphere of influence. And so today I want to break down how you can actually begin to create said content, okay? Content that becomes a current, that actually moves your community to where God is actually calling them to be through your transformative products and services starting today. Great day, Wavemaker, and welcome to Her Elevated Self. If you're new here, I'm Ebony Lynn, and here we focus on the psychology of purpose, the biblical and the brain-based strategies that will equip you to become her and build your purpose-led brand from divine assignment without the burnout. Let's get into it. Wavemaker, I know that you've got the juice. You are more than qualified, and you are a woman that God has called to take up space in the online marketplace. And He has called you to both content and clients. And I am definitely going to deliver on everything that I said I would. Okay. But I will be completely out of integrity if I did not lay the foundation of the fact that 80% of your success actually lies in the realm of your soul. 80% of your success is energetics, okay? And your soul is the realm of your mind, your will, and your emotions. So this is, again, your mind, your mindset, your emotions, your nervous system, okay? Your nervous system, all right? And so it's really important that you know that actually success is just 20% strategy. So if you've been finding that you've been doing the things and they haven't quite worked yet, it's because we have to actually focus on the energetics first, which is why I will stand 10 toes down on identity first brand building, okay? Because the truth is that you do not receive what you want, nor do you receive simply just what you ask for, okay? We actually receive according to who we're being, okay? And so this ultimately comes down to being able to recognize where your attention is lying. Where is your focus? Is your focus on your heavenly vision, or is your focus on what Susan is doing to the left of you? Is it on what Bethany, what her latest strategy is? Okay. What is your focus? Because your focus actually tells you who you are at your core. We all have a set point, okay? We all have a set point, or what I like to call a default power structure, okay? And this power structure is the set point of your pursuits, which means that you cannot create abundance, you cannot create clarity, you cannot create like a greater level of visibility, okay? You cannot create those things from a power structure of scarcity or a power structure of doubt, all right? And so I go into this in so much more detail within the Movement Maker method, but the woman that you are today is truly habitual, okay? And about 95% of how you think and even how you feel, how you behave is nothing more than an automatic program. It's just habit, all right? And that means ultimately your subconscious mind, it loves the path of least resistance, okay? So it likes the path of familiarity. And one of the things that you have to do is actually really understand your role, okay? So your role as not just being a woman who is stewarding a purpose-led brand, but also understanding how to govern and wield your authority within your very being, okay? And so the reason why you have to understand this role is because you have to be able to tell your nervous system and your mind that it is safe for you to move beyond your comfort zone, okay? So that you can move into greater levels of business success. And in order to do this, you simply begin by bringing awareness to your thoughts, to your emotions and your behaviors. Our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors, they're all interconnected, okay? And if you disrupt the pattern in one area, you can actually dismantle the typical cycle of self sabotage. And again, I only have so much time really to talk about this, but I have to touch on this. I have to. I will be out of integrity, okay? If I told you what to do, but not actually provided you with the true mechanism that actually makes it work. And again, that mechanism is recognizing that mastering the 80%, mastering the 80% is actually what will allow the 20% to make an impact. All right. And so, again, if you would like to even go deeper just within that, you definitely want to join us within the Movement Maker method. But this is the success formula. It's recognizing that energetics is 80% and the strategy is 20%. Now, let's get to the strategy. So, the people that you were assigned, the people that are actually assigned to your sphere of influence, they are seeking your solutions and they actually do want to pay you. Okay. And so the thing that I want you to know and recognize is that there is, in fact, room for you. And there are, in fact, people who actually need what it is that you have. And all you have to do is actually understand how to speak to them and understand what they need most in order to make an aligned buying decision. Okay. Now, there are 4 buyer types, and this is actually just the tip of the iceberg as it relates to ethical sales psychology, God aligned sales psychology. Okay. This is just the tip of the iceberg. So I can only say so much. All right. But there are 4 different types of buyers. You have the amiable buyer, the expressive buyer, the analytical buyer, and the driver buyer. Okay. And what you will find is that as I break each one down, you'll be able to identify yourself within the buyer types. It is also possible to kind of be fluid between 1 to 2. Typically, I am a driver buyer, but I can be a little fluid depending upon what the investment is. Okay. So I want to break each one down. For the amiable buyer, you have to recognize that their core motivation is actually stability and cooperation. So for them, their selling strategy is actually your selling strategy for the amiable buyer is actually allowing them the space to make the decision. Okay. Give them the space to make the decision. And also you want to highlight the ease of transition that your service will provide. And the reason why you have to, when you are creating content or creating hooks, so to speak, the reason why you actually want to keep this in mind is because their chief aim, their core desire is actually to make everyone else happy. Okay. And so you have to make sure that when you are selling, when you are creating content, that you are keeping this in mind. Okay. Because a part of what they really desire is they desire ease of use. Okay. They despise change and chaos. Okay. So it's really important that, again, that you highlight the ease of transition that your service will actually provide. Number 2, the second buyer type that we'll talk about is the expressive buyer. The expressive buyer, their core motivation is actually recognition and approval. Their chief aim, the heart of what they desire is actually community and belonging. Okay. So when you are creating your content or when you are selling your services, you actually want to spend time developing a relationship with them. Okay. And so this is when you would definitely begin to lean into more embodiment content as well as transformation content. So both of these are different types of content that actually share your personal story, your personal journey, as well as client transformations. Okay. Because ultimately, one of their core drivers is relationships. Okay, so they actually want to feel as though they belong in a community. When I was on Instagram, I would create these little sayings in my stories. Okay, one of those sayings was so much not now. Okay, I would be like, so much not now. Okay, and I told them the story about of the meaning behind it. So much now is actually something that my sister used to say. And she would say it anytime she had something like really good and juicy to tell me, but right now wasn't the right time. So much not now. And so I actually took that from my personal life and I made that an anecdote, right? To create a sense of belonging and community, okay, with mind people, okay. We'll look at the analytical buyer. The analytical buyer, their motivation is logic and information. And for them, their core aim is actually accuracy and risk aversion. All right. They want to be able to avoid risk. Now, in order to be able to avoid risk, what do you think you have to tell them? For them, your strategy is actually giving them enough time to really consider all of the facts, which means that you actually want to share as much information as possible with them. Okay. And again, these people, they don't like being rushed into a decision. Nope. If you try to do that, you'll definitely you'll definitely turn them off. And another thing is, especially with the analytical buyer, don't be afraid to repeat yourself. Don't be afraid again to provide additional clarity, to show client testimonials. Also, don't be afraid if you have like any type of claims or guarantee, don't be afraid to actually be upfront about those, because for the analytical buyer, this will aid and help them in their buying decision. The last type of buyer type is the driver buyer. The buyer, their motivation is power and respect. Okay. And their aim is actually to avoid being taken advantage of, okay, or disrespected. Okay. As you can see, I'm like cheesing because this is actually pretty much my core buyer type. All right. And so the selling strategy for the driver buyer is actually you want to show them proof of service. Okay. So with them, you actually don't want to make flashy claims. Nope. It'll be a dead giveaway and a turn off. For them, you actually want to be able to show them respect. Okay. You want to show them respect without actually allowing them to push you over. Okay. And so ultimately, these people, they have little respect for you being like weak in character. Okay. And this is really important because that also means that you have to be in integrity with your work. Okay. Because if they don't trust you, you best to believe they will not be making a purchasing decision with you. All right. So I actually would also like to provide you with a few content prompts for this. And so for the amiable buyer type, for them, the thing that I want you to recognize is that this buyer is actually emotionally driven, which means that when you're creating content for them, you actually want to story sell their vision. Okay. You also want to um share what like through the body of your work, you actually want to be able to share what their actual mission is. And you also want to lean into verbiage that is collaboratively driven. Okay. And so here are a couple content prompts you could say. Here's how you can what they desire without something your dream client values related to a result of your work. Okay. You could say, okay, I went from blank present struggle or problem to something that your client actually values related to your work by focusing on blank. So, something that your ideal client desires to be, do, or have. Now, for the expressive buyer, for them, they are also emotionally driven, but they care about you. They actually care about your story. And this is actually the other buyer type that I tend to flow between. So I flow between being expressive and being a driver buyer. And so they these are individuals who actually, again, they care about you, they care about your story, and not just your results. And again, for this buyer, you also want to focus on storytelling. Now, for a couple content prompts, the first you could say, looking for the insert ideal client who insert their key characteristics. And if you're listening to this and you would actually like, if you're listening or watching the, and you would like to have a copy of this document that has the prompts and everything, I will definitely leave it in the description and in the show notes for you. All it'll cost is your email. Okay. So let's see. For the expressive buyer, the second content prompt that you can use is how I went from a problem that your dream client presently has that you experienced to blank, which is a personal result that your dream client desires. Now, again, here is the thing. This is not about um, false claims, gimmicks. No, no, no. All of this is related to your core mission. Okay. If you are a woman who is led by God, who has been led by God to create and build a purpose led brand, you have a holy mission and you have people that are called to the work of your holy mission. And as such, you want to treat people with respect, right? And I feel like I shouldn't have to say that, but I do because even, but I do, okay? So I have to make that caveat because this is not about like appealing to people's pain points and things like that. No, this is what this is a tool for you to understand even yourself, but this is a tool for you to understand those who were called to your body of work and to be able to speak to them in a way that will actually lead them to the place that God is calling them to, which is through your transformational work. Okay. And so, also with that, what I want you to recognize is I want you to really think about the type of buyer you are because 9 times out of 10, okay, the people that are called to your work will actually mirror your buyer type. All right. But you have to make sure in your content that you actually are speaking to all of the buyer types because actually, when they are in various phases of their buyer journey, so there are phases of the buyer journey, being unaware of the problem, being problem aware, being solution aware, and then actually finally becoming clients, right? you can actually shift into different buyer types, okay? Or you can flow through the various buyer types based on where you are in the process, which is why I said I tend to flow between two, but my primary is the driver. All right. So, last two, the analytical buyer. The analytical buyer, they are data driven. So, you want to give them facts and you want to provide them with details. They want to know your method. They also want to know the steps of delivering your transformation. And also, if you can really pick up what I'm putting down, when you create copy for your sales page, your sales pages should actually be moving through every last one of these buyer types. That's for game. All right. So, a couple content prompts for the analytical buyer. You could say, okay, three key focuses that will take you from blank to blank. So, three key focuses that will take you from their present struggle or problem to their desired transformation. The second content prompt that you can use is in blank, you will be blank. Here's how. Okay. Please use this with discretion. Okay. Please use this with discretion. All right. Well, you could say, okay, in X time frame, you will be blank, which is the desired transformation. Here's how. Now, last but not least is the uh, driver buyer type. And again, these are people much like the analytical buyer. They are data driven. They are motivated by the end result. What is the ROI? They value speed and possibility, but not necessarily speed in the way that you would think. Okay. Simply for them, you just want to be able to give them the information. Okay. So I'm the type of person that essentially I when I know what I when okay, so I if I know what I'm looking for, I know what I'm looking for. Actually, this is a really good example. One of my last coaches, I knew what I was looking for. Okay. I knew exactly what I was looking for. I was looking for someone who was adept in brand building, but I was also looking for someone who just had an eye for detail among many, 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 many other things. Okay. And literally, I went through her content once and reached out and did a incentive with her. I knew, I just knew it. All of the information was readily available. It was easy for me to buy. I didn't have to DM. I came out of nowhere for her. And that's a side note for many of you. Many of you are expecting for, to see a bajillion likes, a bajillion comments. But here is the truth. The truth is that the real ones, okay, people who are truly ready to invest, they don't often lurk. They don't often lurk. They don't often lurk. They're very decisive. I know that I have people watching my content that don't like and don't comment, but I know that they're taking in my work. They're taking notes. I receive messages from them from time to time, right? So don't allow what you see to stop you from being consistent in the thing that the Lord has asked you to do. Work the land, continue to plow in the land. The results will come, not always in the way that you think. All right. And so let's move to these content prompts. For the driver buyer, you could say, okay, your 5-day plan to blank by blank. So your 5-day plan to or your dream client result is by the end of the week, right? Or just a time frame. Another content prompt from them or them is, okay, here are 3 things I do daily to blank. So here are 3 things I do daily to whatever their desired end result is as it relates to your offer. Okay. And so this is most definitely what I know. What I know is that when you know who your audience is, you can actually use that information to create more effective sales strategies and also be able to have better conversations. So, the worst thing that you can do is actually to be talking fast and going fast when you have someone who is like an annual buyer, for instance. That's the wrong approach, or vice versa. The worst thing that you can do is actually be talking circumlocutiously, right? Or, just taking forever to bring your point when you're dealing with a driver buyer. With them, you want to be succinct. You want to provide the information quickly, okay? And so when you know who you're talking to, it allows you to actually be a better steward of your business and also to be a better servant to the people that are within your sphere of influence. And so that is a wrap. And Wave Maker, if you are someone who is ready to really understand why people buy, okay? Learn how to create content that actually invites your God aligned clients, okay? People who are not just willing to invest, but truly are hungry for your work. Then, of course, I have to invite you inside of the Movement Maker Method, okay? So, truly, my prayer is that you become a woman who knows how to regulate herself, so who knows how to wield her authority over the realm of her soul you have a greater level of capacity, okay, to compel your aligned dream clients and actually enter a space where you can actually make sales seamless within your life, okay? And so I really, I'm so excited for the Movement Maker Method. Like, I've been talking about it a little bit here lately, and you'll be continuing to hear me talk about it because the one thing that I know is that it is time. It is time for God's daughters to take up their swords, okay? Take their stance on the battlefield of the online marketplace and to declare your message, to truly declare the work of the Lord through the works of your hands, okay? And so it is time for you to enter your era of being called to create. And again, the Movement Maker Method is the home for systematically understanding how to build your purpose led brand and create magnetic content that truly becomes a current, moving your community to where God wants them to be through your transformative offers. I love you all and I appreciate you. And as always, I pray that that your hands are empowered, okay? That the Lord truly begins to teach your fingers to war and your hands to battle. Because guess what? Your work is actually a battle cry in the marketplace. And it is time for you to be a movement maker. Bye for now.